Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So, hey, guys, I'm actually really excited. A little bit about myself, just one liner. I'm Sukhpal, Customer Success Manager from the UK. And it's a great pleasure to have one of my favorite customers and probably one of the most successful Mendix customers globally. You know, if you don't mind me saying that personally myself, Zurich Insurance and Barrington Clark, right? You know, so I have to say a couple of things about Barrington and a little bit about Zurich before I hand over the stage to Barrington. I'll start off with Zurich Insurance. I started working with Zurich nearly 3 years ago when I joined Mendix. It's been 3 years to this month. At that time, Zurich had one application that they were working on, testing what low-code was going to be able to do for them. And last year, we have at least 11 or 12 applications and are now working on a number of strategic applications that have been designated by the Chief Operating Officer to kind of change the way Zurich is going to work in the UK market, right? It's pretty remarkable, great story. What I really like about Barrington and the company is the willingness to learn from us, you know. So now we've been working pretty closely together for 3 years, going in, doing education exercises, and it's brilliant, you know. Whatever we say, you kind of take it on board, do your own research, you know, back it up, and then implement it, right, you know. So great to do that. And a little bit about Barrington. Very interesting character, personality as well, you know.
Okay, that's not a great recommendation, so pal. Yeah. That's what the police say when they arrest you.
Well, so Barrington is ex-British Army. You know, he was stationed out in the Falkland Islands, working for the intelligence unit.
Intelligence Corps, yeah, that's right.
Intelligence Corps, yeah. He's got a great collection of old computers as well. You know, I don't even know some of the names that you.
Yes, I collect 8-bit microcomputers, BBCs, Dragons, Texas Instruments, Spectrums, you name it. I love and play with them still. So yeah.
And in your spare time, you do work for army charities as well, right? Helping them do some IT stuff as well. Yeah. So brilliant.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction. So good afternoon, everybody. During this session, I'd like to talk about the DevOps journey that Zurich has gone through. And I hope this is a transparent and candid, warts and all approach. So we did a lot of things right, but there's some things that we probably had my time again, I would have done them slightly differently. So Zurich Insurance is present in over 130 countries. Within the United Kingdom, we've got about 5,500 employees. We have a very complex technical landscape with hundreds of different systems to serve very many business segments. So there's some real challenges there in terms of technical architecture. So what I'd like to go through is all those topics there. And so really the genesis of our DevOps journey, why we chose the Mendix and a low-code platform, how we align ourselves to businesses and some of the challenges around that, how we started, how we structured, how we grew, the governance model, application factory approach which we've embarked upon, and some of my portfolio highlights of things we're particularly proud about. So why did we start the DevOps capability and embrace Agile and indeed Mendix? Well, back in 2016, there was a real frustration in the business, in fact with the Chief Operating Officer at the time, who came from a smaller insurance company, that he just couldn't get stuff done. You can imagine that being a large global corporate, we are very aggressive in terms of outsourcing. And so if you want to get an app built quickly, you're probably looking at about a month to get a request for service. You could be taking a couple of months to get the specification, and you could be looking at 6 or 7 months just to get a conversation going before you can actually start to deliver an application. And the chief operator just didn't understand why we just couldn't get some stuff built. So a decision was made to look at low code as well as traditional development. Now we have an entity called Group that sits globally over all the different countries, and they were looking at OutSystems as well as Mendix. The UK looked at the Mendix platform and OutSystems, and the decision was made to drive with Mendix because we like the culture of Mendix and we like the way that they want to support us in being successful, not just about the tools. And that's a theme I'll come back to as well. So there was an execution of a pilot. So Mendix were bought in to basically convert an underwriter spreadsheet into an application. That was very successful. And then in late 2016, the DevOps team was stood up. So there was a technical proof of concept. Is it feasible? Is it possible? And then the team was stood up, and that's when I came on board. So, and then we had our own pilot, another underwriting application, and I'll tell you more about that later on. So why Mendix low code? Well, you've all heard the story from Gartner. It's 10 times faster than traditional development methods as well. And because it's 10 times faster and it's quick and easy and it's cheap, we're able to offer proof of concept to the business. So we do this by saying to them, look, you've got an idea, you've got a business idea, you've got an idea that has a technical proof concept issue, we can give you 10 days of free development and deliver a proof of concept, and then we play it back and give it back to the business. And we've done that on several occasions. And the real power of that is first of all, they can play and try something out, but also we give it back to the business, and so they can then do the internal selling. There's nothing worse than trying to sell a claims app or an underwriting app before the IT bloke who built it. It's got to come from one of their own. And that proof of concept, the rapidness of the development allows you to do that. DevOps in a box. This is really important. Many companies start their DevOps journey by buying tools or trying to justify buying tools. They try and get the GitHub and Jenkins and Bamboo and Octopus. And you know, no one really cares apart from DevOps people what tools you've got. And with DevOps in a box, with the Mendix platform, you get the lightweight tools, you can start building an application, and then you can deliver an application in 3 or 4 weeks. And then the business says, wow, you did that in 4 weeks. And then you've got some interest, you've got an audience. How did you do that? And then they're interested. And I've seen this so many times where the IT function says, oh, I need £500,000 for tools. And it's like, absolutely not. To do what? Or so we can deliver software faster. Well, which? Well, we're not quite sure yet. We just want to have a play around with it. You know, I paraphrase, but that's what typically happens. And so by delivering value to the business, by just getting an application out there and doing it so quickly, people are really, really engaged. And we've had product owners, and we say, we'll deliver that in 6 weeks. And they just don't believe you. Then after 2 weeks, they're going, well, these guys might pull it off. And by about week 4, okay, I got it. You can do this really, really quickly. And that's the way to get investment for DevOps. Business-driven development. So this is really about fixing the disconnect between the business and IT. And I know this is cliche to death, but there still in 2019 is a natural disconnect between the business and IT in some large organizations. And I'll talk a little bit about how Zurich fixed that. Design for MVPs over full applications, annual life cycles of deployment, annual budgeting, annual planning. It means that if you want to deliver an application in June 2020, you need to start talking about it now. You need to work out what you need to do. You need to get some money. You need to prove to somebody that it's got business benefits, which you ramp up and inflate because you want your application to win all the other applications. And if it's lucky and you get started, you might get your application, you might get 2 months worth of development, and then the whole team just disbands and disintegrates, and that's that until the following year. Okay, that doesn't sound great to me. MVPs, minimum viable product, means you get value to the business, you all know that, but with our model, and I'll talk about how we funded our DevOps staff from run costs, not project costs, the business knows that once we've delivered MVP, we're coming back. In fact, we never left. We're there for the product to be delivered to MVP, and it to be iterated through the lifestyle of the product until we sunset it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later. So it proves to the business we're just not this for the big bang and then we'll move away. Responses to different business levers. So this is really important for us. It's rather than have to maintain all these multiple technology stacks for different types of technology. You know, if you want to do innovation, you've got to have .NET IoT. If you want to do customer relationship management type stuff, you've got to have Salesforce. It's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, Mendix. You can actually do lots of stuff with it. And the stuff that other platforms might do well, like Salesforce and case management, well, you can put really great Mendix experiences over the top of that as well. And that's what we do. So we can respond to all these different levers within the business using one tool broadly. And that's really powerful because I can have lots of people all doing the same thing, same languages, and any incremental improvements I put on that platform benefits all those different business areas. Focus on small investments. We can deliver a small mobile application with a year's worth of hosting for about 35, 45K. Okay, and that is really, really cheap compared to a .NET, externally driven, swarms of project managers, business analysts, all the rest of it, all over it. Okay, and also, you know, if it doesn't work, that sort of number, okay, it didn't work. Put it down to experience, we'll reclaim the license and we'll start again. And I know it is a lot of money, of course it's a lot of money, but actually in the scheme of things, when you're looking at multi-million pound portfolios, it's a really small amount of money. It's really easy to say yes to 50K. It's not easy to 250K or £500,000. It's really easy to say yes to a 2-week proof of concept, which once they've seen it, they're so engaged with it and they so want it, you'll get that. You'll get a yes there easily, absolutely easily. And then less reliance on third parties. So my team is fairly broad in terms of skill sets and I try and keep it that way. Because if I touch any contractor or third party, everything just grinds to a shuddering halt. And my anecdote is this. So we built an accident health portal from idea to in production, multilingual, Spanish, German, English, in 8 weeks. It took 7 weeks to configure the server, which already existed, just to expose it to the internet. And this is a problem I have. If I deliver a Mendix app and I stick it in the Mendix cloud, it takes about 20 minutes to do that. Okay, and that's if I have a brew beforehand. Whereas if I go to a third party, by third party, okay, weeks, swarms of project managers, huge amounts of costs, change requests. It's just too painful. So I try and keep all those skills and the technologies within my team. So I'm going to read you my North Star statement. So I don't normally read slides out verbatim because you all can read, but I just want to run this one past you. So this is last year I decided that it would be a really good idea to encapsulate the ethos, the culture, and the drive of my team. And I came up with this slide deck, and it really irritated loads of people in the IT department. This wasn't really particularly helpful, because I basically said what we were doing is really great and what you're doing not so great. So that was unhelpful, but I do believe it. I just had to be careful about who I talk about it. So I said, today when the business wants to build an application or platform, it needs to engage internal or external customers. They have to turn to predominantly waterfall-based delivery function, restrained by outsourced applications, infrastructure support, delivery model. Everything, application to infrastructure, is all outsourced and third party. This is unsatisfactory because when the model is slow to respond to customer and market demand, slow to deliver value to the business, and does not support the aspiration of creating an innovative, creative, experimental, and exciting working environment. You know, plan in June to get it next June, if you're lucky. We've created a world where we can respond quickly to the demands of the market, deliver applications and therefore value to the business fast, iteratively, and provide a vibrant, exciting, innovative and collaborative working environments. The people I employ in my team love being in DevOps because no one day is the same. The projects are different business segments, different problems, different engagements with different people. Not the same stuff, same governance model, same old, and that's a really exciting place to be. So we brought this world around through the adoption of DevOps practices and Agile project management framework, adopting rapid application development technologies, Mendix, and the courage and conviction to challenge the status quo to create the environment needed to support this different way of working. And that's the important thing here, challenge the status quo. And that could be conversation by conversation. This is not big bang. This is about building relationships with people and saying, do you know, you need to do it this way. Well, there might be another way. And if we could accommodate each other, we could both win. So, if you're not doing BizDevOps, then you're not doing DevOps. So this is my potted view of the world. There's no one way to deliver DevOps. DevOps revolutions in businesses happen, actually. It's a slow trickle at a time. It can come from the bottom up, from engineers wanting to deliver better quality software faster, or from the top down, where senior management think, actually, do you know, we need better quality in our systems. We're going to take responsibility for our own destiny. But very often I do ask myself, did we forget the business? Because Dev and Ops doesn't really recognize the profound interest that the business has in producing applications. It doesn't acknowledge that. And even in my own company, I've seen Agile, that awful term where we're doing stuff iteratively, but actually we're not going to tell anybody about it because they won't be that interested. Okay? And it's just absolutely makes me burst into tears, quite frankly, because actually if you're not involved in the business, if you haven't got them fully engaged, then you're not really doing DevOps, because how have you got feedback loops? How are you allowing yourself to correct every sprint at the end of every single sprint? Make the business own it. And this is coming from our Chief Operating Officer. Make the business own it. How many times have you developed applications in your own organisations where you've given it to the business and all of a sudden, well, we're a bit busy, we've got a lot on lately, we haven't got enough people to look after it or man it or staff it. And actually, I only really want to know if there's a defect or you want more functionality. If a customer rings up and they've got a problem, it's probably with their account or their circumstances, actually not with the application. And you need to filter those calls because you own the relationship with the customer. It's probably very, very familiar, but it happens an awful lot. You build that app, you have that understanding, and then they paddle away from it as quickly as possible, thinking I'm going to call their customers and deal with their problems. So they take responsibility for the value, the benefits, and they take responsibility to run it because it's their application, we're just delivering it for them. And that's been difficult. That's a difficult conversation you seem to have with every product owner because the business is under pressure. All businesses are under pressure. So you need to make sure that relationship is well understood up front. Give the business hope. This sounds a bit dewy-eyed, but when you've got annual budgeting life cycles and you're telling somebody that, actually, I want to sell this insurance product, I want to go large on it, but I'm going to have to wait a year and a half for an app, okay? To say, well, come and have a chat, let's have a coffee, and actually I might be able to start something in about a week or 2 weeks' time if you want to pay for it, or, depending on my funding model, I could schedule in for the next 2 or 3 months or so and we can develop an application. It really gives them hope. And this relationship that this engenders has meant that we have gone out to pitches with our sales teams to talk to big customers, big customers, that we're prepared to modify our applications and make changes because of the relationship we want with them. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And DevOps, did you mean BizDevOps? So if your DevOps model hasn't got the business involved, security, data protection, information governance, all those bodies, then I do ask the question, are you really doing DevOps or are you just doing iterative software development? So that's a question that's a culturally dependent question that you probably have to ask yourself. So this is I'm just going to describe now really sort of the 3 broad stages of how we built our team up, the start, structure, grow. And what I will say is that, and this is a bit of a plug actually for Mendix, it's the only one I will do, but we did buy into the digital enablement package when we started our journey. And I found it really, really useful because, as I said in the panel discussion yesterday, the typical way people start in DevOps, go and buy a DevOps book, and they go and buy the Phoenix project, and they read through it. And it's really interesting, but you think, how the hell does this apply to my company? How does this apply to what I do? It's really hard, it's really difficult, because every company is different, the politics are different, the culture is different, and to get that senior buy-in, and to get that buy-in from across your IT organisation, takes someone coming in who knows what they're doing, who's sensitive to all those different levers, and to help you pick your way through it. And that's what we found. And so just understanding the applications you should build, the portfolio, how that's put together, identifying the value, communicating the value. Lots of people don't do that sort of thing. We did from the outset, and now it's part of our DNA. If we're building an app for somebody, how much is it going to make? Is it a new market entry? Are you protecting the existing market? Are you delivering operational efficiencies? And I tell my product owners when we start our application, I say to them, the number that you give me, I'm going to publicize to death. So you better be telling me the truth. And they always come back and say, actually, it's half that value. But that's fine, because if we deliver more than that value, we're all heroes, yeah? But don't go big. I'm not a portfolio management function. I just need to know why I'm delivering this application. So what we did, we started building an application, terrorism data capture, underwriting application, massively too complicated for a pilot application, but we got through it. But had my time again, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it was a big monolithic underwriting application with massive data cleansing and enrichment, taken from a core Visual Basic database. There were data quality issues with the data that we had to fix. Nothing to do with us, we just had to fix that. But that was fantastic because actually we saved loads of money for the company because we found some data quality issues and we did all that. But my God, it was too difficult. And what we could have done is something that was 4 or 5 weeks long and actually, really great, really attractive. Everybody had been wowed by it. Actually, we delivered a really, really good underwriting application. But believe you me, nobody gets excited about underwriting applications. Not even underwriters get excited about underwriting applications. So my advice to you is get advice. Okay, that's my top tip. Get advice. In terms of structure, so we talk about the team building and morphing, and then and structuring and having specialist skills, and then we'll talk about how we actually grow the team. So here we go. This is my team. This is how we started in late 2016. So product owner, one stream of development. We had business engineers, I call them, hybrid business analysts and developers. But I just want to say they're not fully qualified business analysts and fully qualified developers. They're people with the right mindset and skill set that can listen and translate business problems into IT solutions. And they went on their basic online Mendix training courses. DevOps lead, that's me, and I acted as Scrum Master for that initial part of the project. And also we've got a data integration specialist over there. That was really, really helpful. A lot of the applications, that if you're doing replatforming, decommissioning of applications rather than greenfield, having somebody can drag data out of one app and stick it on another one without relying on third parties, really, really helpful. So that's what we had. Choose the right pilot application. Again, focus on the development of one work stream. Don't try and be clever. Just do one thing at a time, because this is a learning pilot. This is not just pilot, do it, bang, next. This is actually how you cut your teeth, how you learn how to develop in Mendix. And find a funding model for staff and capital expenditure. So I was really lucky. The advice I was given is make sure your staff are funded from operational run costs, not project costs. And I've had a couple of changes of boss, and I've reasserted that, and I've been successful in having that. So what that means is I don't have to recover all the costs for my staff. So I can do projects in the portfolio and recover all the costs. I can do projects in the portfolio that they've got hopelessly not enough money, but because I think the idea is good for our customers, I can provide them with free or unrecoverable development. I've had HR approach me that want to support the graduate training program. Okay, HR always at the back of the queue for funding, and I thought it was such a great idea. I helped them build the business case, and we funded the development. And also, I can do internal projects as well. So when we're doing operational stuff, we want to increase the speed of our continuous integration delivery pipeline, putting more tools, all that kind of stuff. I can just say, right, guys, you're working on that for 4 weeks. I don't have to worry about recovering 90% of their costs or 100% of their costs. And that was extremely liberating and powerful. So I think 8, 9, 10 months later, we managed to get ourselves into this situation. And this is now, we've now got enough people for 2 teams. I move away from being Scrum Master, and I'm doing used car salesman stuff, touting my wares. I've modelled myself as a startup within the organisation. So rather than sit there passively waiting for somebody to give me work, I decided to go on a PR rampage, advertising wares, anybody that does anything good in the team, stick it on internal social media, all that kind of stuff to attract people. And now we're now at the stage where I'm getting work from the portfolio, I'm getting random emails, I'm getting random calls, I'm getting, can you come out to the business with us? And it's absolutely BizDevOps, because we are involved with the business now. They come to talk to us. We might not be able to help them, because actually they think they're asking for something simple and it's really difficult, but they can have a conversation with somebody without being bombarded by technical stuff. Let's just have a conversation, and then I can direct you into the right place. Or if they've got an app, I think there's an app in it, or there's some applications in there, then we can have a conversation. I help them with the business case. I help them articulate what the value is, because sometimes they're not very good at doing that. I want them to be successful because I want to build stuff for them, and so I help them do that. So we've got 2 streams of development. The Scrum Master team lead, so the team lead, as you'll be aware, in a Scrum team is providing that technical guidance and direction within the team, and the Scrum Master, that traditional protection role for the actual team itself. And then what we've got here, we've got external accelerators. So at the time, we Mendix architecture team come in when we've got some big stuff, and they still do that. We've got outsourced quality assurance and testing capability before we bought the ATS tool. And also we've got a UI UX subject matter expert as well. So I now got one embedded, and I'll show you that. But beforehand, we used to get Mendix in, because I'll be honest with you, we thought we won't need that, it'll be fine. Okay, and then you see what developers do to end user applications, and it's so not fine. It's unbelievable. Absolute dog's breakfast. Linear lists and stuff, completely wrong. Why I ever thought that, I don't know. Anyway, so we recover from that situation. So we can do these two lines of development. And then, whiz it forward. This is pretty much where we are today. So we've got 3 teams of development. I call them work streams. I keep using that term, work streams, because I don't fund projects. I fund streams of activity. that it might be on one project, and I do 2 weeks on something, and I might do 6 weeks on that, and I might do 10 weeks on that. And I see them as funding a stream, not as projects. And I do that deliberately because I've got the funding model that I've got. I've got 2 teams here that work on the big stuff, and these guys are on small change. And that is anything less than a month, they will work on it. Because somebody says to me, you know, we want a couple of buttons or we want this done. I don't want to be picking people out of this team to say, well, can you just leap back on that application and do it? These guys will do the small change stuff. And that's worked really, really well. What's also worked well is having a dedicated UI UX expert. So he sits there and he works across all these teams. So he can deliver that capability across all those teams. He also looks after our sprint zero, design thinking, persona development. He does all that stuff now. And so he's taking the team through that every time a new project's set up. He is a fully qualified advanced Mendix developer, so he gets it, but he loves doing UI UX. So I thought that was a good idea to make him the UI UX expert. Data integration specialist is still there. And also we now have a DevOps team. So that's 1/2 people, business engineer, Mendix developer, advanced, and they're on the ops role. Anything with infrastructure, any application defects, any problems at all, I'm not pulling people out of teams. I've got somebody who can just respond and deal with stuff. And you'll note when you get to a certain stage, you've got about 4 or 5 applications, you'll note that there's a burden starts to build up of actually it's not just developing new stuff and getting excited, actually you've got a responsibility to look after and maintain existing stuff. And like some of our big applications, we had one called Account Story, which is an underwriting app. It was so successful, we've had to put more functionality on for more business segments to use that application. So we've had to keep returning back to that. And it's really useful to have that operations role that can look at any defects or have those conversations with. So that might work for you. But also a dedicated Scrum Master. So the business engineer can now dedicate themselves to being a technical lead and a developer, and we've got a dedicated Scrum Master now that can actually do that role. They do any liaison with external third parties, they do that, which is fantastic. They raise all the change requests and all the paperwork and all that kind of stuff, so that's all really good news. And blended development. So I've engaged with Mendix and also with Epiuse. I have an arrangement with them and a services agreement with them that if I need a massive ramp up in development fairly rapidly, I don't have to go through lots and lots of financials. I can just get on the phone, raise a couple of forms, and I can get people in. And that's really useful because it means that if somebody says, I've got an app and I need it in 2 months, and that does happen, that I don't have to stop stuff. I've got a mechanism to bring development in as well. And I recommend to you that if you've got a small internal team, just in the background, get that blended burst capability in place. Because if somebody says to you, can you do it? And you say, oh, I can't, no, I'm really busy, then you sort of failed at the first hurdle, really. Don't put yourself in that position. How are we for time? Okay. So this is my governance model. When we first started, we looked at the existing waterfall governance model, all 220 of its spectacular controls and checks. And I'll be honest with you, I sort of stooped into a catatonic depression, the thought of having to go through all those checks. But I do understand it. You know, we are an insurance company. We have a responsibility to our stakeholders. We have a responsibility to our customers. And I get why they're all in there. But actually, it's just not relevant for initiative development of software. So we had a lightweight governance model. I designed this, and I played it back to the business. But this went through about 12, 14 months, really, of doing this unofficially. And the key things I will say, there is a holy trinity of approvals that any project really, really needs. And that is architecture, data protection, and security. And if you've got those, you're pretty much in a good place, and you can crack on. So what we didn't do initially is we didn't do early engagement. We were not good at that. We started design, got very spun up and excited, and then we said, architecture, would like to come and see what we've designed, built. And of course, that's the wrong answer, because architecture wanted to design and build with you. And also data protection as well, because sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Because during that sprint zero, you actually don't know what you're building in terms of data until you've actually got the discovery. So we learned really early on, is sometimes just a 20-minute phone call with these people to say, we're building this, we want you on board. Don't be alarmed if you hear anything in the business, but we'll bring you in at an appropriate time. Really, really helps. And you'll notice that those engagements are sustained through the entire governance model, because as your app iterates, as it evolves, as it's delivered, so will the data model, and so will the other things. And certainly for us, we've got Mendix Cloud cleared up to confidential, but anything that's got anything highly sensitive in it has to be on-premise. So if some smart aleck at the very end of the development says, we absolutely must have medical data on that application, it's only a couple of fields. Well, actually, it's not only a couple of fields. It's a complete replatforming the entire application. It's just not that easy. So to have those conversations up front, have the right people involved, and make sure people reveal all their thinking is really, really important. So governance people don't like surprises. Building confidence, right? So I'll talk about deployment patterns later, but really, I really wanted to know what data protection we're worried about. I really wanted to know what security we're worried about, not low-level worry beads. What do they want as comfort? So all the blue book security standards that Zurich had built into our application set. Data protection, special slide decks with all the principles of GDPR all addressed, outlined, because I thought the easier I can make it to make them say yes, the quicker I can get approval and get my application done. And they like that because it means that, the DevOps team, they care, they get data protection and they care about it, rather than them keep saying no for 10 weeks until you sort of stroppily and nonchalantly, I'll change the application then, all that kind of thing. And transition to production as well. So is deployment patterns, repeated deployments to Mendix Cloud because you've got approval for Mendix Cloud, and actually common components, which I'll talk about later, just give people comfort. So just want to talk very briefly about App Factory. Okay, so we've only just really started this, but and I'll show you some examples in a second, but a lot of our applications, they are claim apps or they're policy apps, and there's a lot of commonality there. And security and compliance, access controls, different sorts of profiles, all that kind of stuff is all fairly typical and common. And in fact, we separated those elements out so we can just keep reusing them. The compliance stuff, data protection, data retention, all separated out. GDPR by design, the principles of GDPR, all our apps, our Mendix apps have that GDPR functionality in it, built in by design. So when the security bods and the data protection team and information governance see our apps, they go, all right, you've got the same protection and mechanisms in your applications as the last one. That speeds stuff up. Common framework, application template, branding, making sure our experience with our customers is the same on whatever application they're using. Common data objects. What that means is that if you try and find a name and address field, postcode, telephone number, and email address field definition in your companies, I should imagine whatever system you go to, they'll be different. So we just use the same one to stop people sitting there scratching their heads working out what those various fields look like. And then finally, the common functionality, email notifications and templates, document generation using our cloud service, and common workflows as well. We've got lots of common components. But it basically means if we start a claims app, we're 3 weeks ahead of the development before we even start, because we've got the framework, the colors, the layout, the format, all that kind of stuff already. Build the branding objects and common objects, build an API library if you can, and build common functionality into the app. So the API library is, if your company or IT function doesn't have a swept up catalog of APIs, then I suggest you start buying one because you'll be using them again and again and again. Just to give you some examples then. So this is a template, quote journey, claim journey, and heading. You can see a bit of Latin chucked in there, all very sophisticated in my team. Title, core elements, all these are all functional buttons that you can just change those elements. That's a typical admin screen, same admin functions, configuration, etc. for the SMTP servers, all that kind of stuff all built in. And then there's a step one breadcrumb trail that will go through all the way to a product cell with a different screen. So we've got pretty much sort of 20% of a claims app already available. We've just got to fill in different words and different pictures. And that's all been approved by branding already. So they look at it and go, yep, lovely, great. And I make a few tweaks because that make them feel valuable, as opposed to, no, all wrong, start again. So, and again, our UI UX guy did all this work and will evolve that work. So just a couple of portfolio highlights then. So these are just 4 of our apps I just want to talk about. So motor first notice of loss. This is not special at all. This is loads of insurance companies have this app. What is special is probably the way it came about. So one of our major customers, a clothing retailer, we were asked by the sales team, could we go and talk to them about the possibility of building a motor FNOL, first notice of loss application. We spent about an hour and a half building an application just to show them something. We played that to them and they went, wow, that's better than we've ever seen from our other providers, and we thought we only built it in an hour and a half. It was just something to look at and play with. Anyway, they loved it. They signed up and they bought a fleet motor policy with us, and we developed this with them. So it allows you to upload images and all that kind of good stuff. Looks at GPS as well. So if you've got an image that's taken in one place and they reported the accident in another place, I know it's very crude, but it says actually that doesn't quite align. You might want to check that. And also, we listen to our customers and we put in the vehicle driver handbook and the motor insurance certificate built into it because they asked for that. And it's just over the moon because actually we listened to them and we built the app. And in fact, some of the things they changed, and it's a bit of a show off really, I think, but our guys that went on to the meeting, they actually did the changes on the train and submitted it over Wi-Fi before they even got home. That's how fast we could iterate. It's really, really powerful. Personal accident. So again, 2 major customers involved in that. What's really great about this desktop and mobile app submitting accident and claims, this is obviously for a corporate customer, and they were frustrated beforehand where typically if people's luggage go missing or there's a delayed flight, it's everybody in the party that they're sending that has to put a claim in. And this app allows them to submit 1 claim for everybody rather than 60 or 70 individual claims for that kind of thing. And in fact, they were so impressed with this application, they made physical changes to the processes and the way their department were configured to accommodate this application. Spanish, German, and English, so you can submit. They've actually asked for Russian. I have no idea how we're going to do that, quite frankly, because I can't even read the Cyrillic alphabet. But we had to bring in language services, which is quite challenging for DevOps. We've got Spanish speakers in my team, but we don't have German speakers, so we'll overcome that one on anyway. But you can see the figures down here, 8 weeks, 2 FTEs, 7K in operational efficiencies, and 30K revenue growth each year. So some really good numbers articulated. Terrorism data capture, that massive monolithic underwriting application, but again, 280K in the first year. So that paid for itself really, really nicely. And that was because of data quality issues that we managed to fix. And also loads of people typing stuff in, we managed to get rid of that as well. Motor green card, so motor green card application, again, that was delivered very short notice in literally 5 weeks, and customers were delighted with it. So to round up then, so what next for UK DevOps? So there's my 4 stages of growth. So I've just received funding for another 6 people, which is fantastic, and we just purchased the Mendix enterprise license. So it's a real testimony that people value what the DevOps team are doing, because actually there's now somewhere to go to get applications quickly. Strategic transformation, we're just about to embark on transforming the IT and processing systems of one of our entire business segments. So no longer claims app, underwriting app, this is the whole business segment revamped and all their systems replaced with Mendix, which I'm very, very excited about. Leveraging microservices, we've got some really hefty monolithic applications that we need to start decomposing and providing that common functionality to underwriting and claims and things like that. And finally, that centre of excellence. So now we've got that expertise and skills, we can start projecting that across the whole IT estate to say, actually, there is another way of delivering your applications. So where we're not using Mendix, we can start influencing that because we've proven it, not just talking about it, but proving it. And I'll stop talking now. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for all listening.
Thank you. Wasn't that awesome? Yes. Good. I think you can say that louder, right? Well, I think we need. We've got some time for Q&A. So I'll walk around with the mic and we can get some questions. Stuart? No? Yeah. Sorry, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, I asked this question yesterday to another gentleman who presented who had a large portfolio of applications, and I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about your strategy or any issues or what your processes are for updating your portfolio of Mendix applications as Mendix upgrades its platforms?
Yeah, okay. So the method that we adopt really to upgrade our applications as Mendix upgrades is in terms of just a physical upgrade from from platform version to platform version. That sits with our operations team. So, for example, we've just upgraded our terrorism data capture from 6 to 7. But in terms of new functionality, we're very aware of the new functionality, for example, that we launched today. We'll be going back to the product owners and saying, actually, we could do this on your application. Would you like us to schedule in some time to do that? Especially things like the Touch ID. We've got employee apps at the moment. People are punching stuff in or using very expensive single sign-on solutions. That could solve that.
Do you have a strategy to try to stay within 3 months or 6 months of a release?
N-2.
N-2?
Yeah.
Across all of your platforms?
At the moment, because we've got about 13, 14 applications, I think N-2, and I'll play that by ear. If that portfolio gets significantly bigger, we might have to revisit that. I don't want to get into a situation where we've got so much technical debt. But the advantage of having a team that's funded from operational run costs is that I can actually take a team off and say, actually, the next 4 weeks, you're going to be upgrading those applications to the latest version of Mendix. So I have that flexibility. But I'll work out what the path looks like when the problem presents itself.
Are you using ATS to help?
I'm using ATS. I have ATS, APM, and AQM, which are all used by the team, which we find very useful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you had a question?
I was really happy to see that you integrated security and compliancy within your design process. I was wondering, how do you cope with those kind of aspects after deployment? Or is that someone else's responsibility after deployment?
So the DevOps team takes responsibility for deployment. So anything like the Mendix Cloud, we operate a segregation of duties. So the ops person is responsible for deploying that code into production, and that governance model supports that. Service, we have a good relationship with service delivery. They know we work differently, and I've just submitted a paper to them, in fact, that has a CAB approval exemption patterns. So stuff that I don't need to get approval for. They don't check the quality of my code or the validity of my database schema. So why would somebody sit in judgment of it? If I've made a change to the schema or I've made a change to the application, as long as my deployment process, it will be the same, click, deploy, then I can do it without exception. So we just, again, it's those brokering those deals one conversation at a time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. One of the common threads in a lot of the talks is that the integrations are one of the bottleneck problems in deploying and running out software. And I didn't see that in your presentation. I didn't see that in your team structure. Does that mean that it's somebody else's problem in your organization, or have you found a way around it that just weaves into your team or your way of working? Or do you select like light integration projects only, or what was your experience?
Initially our portfolio is very much light integration projects initially, but through early engagement with architecture and actually bringing them really into the solution, they can help identify the right APIs or the way that we move stuff. So a project that's not on here, for example, is one for our municipal customers, and that is a very, very heavy back-end integration. But the architecture was just up front, helping us design the right way to get the data to the application. And so we start that stuff very, very early on in its life cycle, so it doesn't become a bottleneck. But saying that, I think it's a real challenge for big organizations, that if you've got lots of different APIs in the cloud, on-premise, sometimes that, the dreaded SFTP type stuff, okay, I can see how that would significantly slow down application development. I absolutely don't have a cure for that at the moment.
Yeah. And just to add to that, we've been, over the course of the day, and generally we've been engaging Mendix architectures to kind of work with the team to bring that closely, and we're going to be doing that throughout the journey as well. I have time for like 2 more questions, or yeah, 2. I've been told 2, so.
So you have quite a number of applications running simultaneously, but you only have 3 teams working on all those different applications and also building new ones. How do you manage that those teams know what to do actually? Because what I see with we have 4 apps running, and we have already kind of single points of knowledge on those applications.
Great question. So how do we manage those development of those applications? So I have a pipeline of scheduled delivery, and we have a relationship with those product owners, and we're constantly keeping on top of what they want so we can schedule in that activity. It's really difficult, isn't it, to keep teams fully informed about certain applications. I think inevitably you'll have certain people have more experience and knowledge. What I try and do is completely shake up all the teams completely. So as this structure evolves, what I haven't got on there is the organisational structure. So those teams might be managed by one person, but they could be in any team. And what I do is I look at somebody who's you've done a claims app, or you've done 2 claims app. Right now, you need to do something load of back office integration, and so I try and mix that experience up. So if they don't have specific in-depth experience with a particular application, then the pattern of challenge in terms of API integration, back office type stuff, at least they do have experience with. But I think it's really difficult not to have somebody who's that app guy or that app girl. It can be really difficult, and I just think you just have to constantly cycle people through and make sure they have a broad understanding. What I don't want to do is go on holiday, and then one of the other guys goes on holiday, app falls down, they go, no idea what's going on. That would be horrific. So you have to stir it up a little bit, I think, sometimes. I'm quite relaxed about, what I don't do is sort of put these sort of patterns down on paper. You get a gut feel for what works. You just have to manage and lead and make a decision and think, right, you're going to go and do this now. Because I think if you start putting this stuff down on paper on some sort of genius thinking, you're just going to get yourself into problems.
And just to add to that, what we have done together with our digital execution practice is review the strengths and weaknesses of the team together with Barrington, and kind of said, okay, here is where we think this person needs to improve or do this, and we're accelerating that by going into the growth stage as well. And actually, almost every member of the team has got advanced certification, right? So that also helps, constant getting certified all the time as well. Okay, no more questions, guys. Time up. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you.